Good morning. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. Hello, my name is Clayton, and on behalf of Operation Rock, as promised, I am here today to talk about what a Monell claim is. For those of you who haven't been following my channel, what my purpose is to advocate against false police reports, and false claims of domestic violence. Briefly about me, I am Clayton Howard. Unfortunately, due to two completely untruthful, unethical women, I was falsely arrested and prosecuted within the states of New York and New Jersey for allegations of domestic violence that I'd never committed. Now, despite the fact that there was extensive proof to substantiate the fact that I never did these things, racism and discrimination in law enforcement was imposed on me by members of law enforcement in New York and New Jersey, and I was prosecuted for years for things that the law enforcement officials whom I am currently suing using the information that I'm putting before you did to me. So, in the beginning, I was not legally knowledgeable at all. As a matter of fact, I'll be honest, I was a legal idiot. I didn't know my rights. I didn't know the procedures. I didn't know the law. Unfortunately, it took me becoming almost bankrupt through to the frivolous litigation filed on me by my ex-girlfriend, Francina Evans, who I do have a lifetime order of protection against, and the actual mother of my child. Now, the sad part about this is the mother of my child and I share a common connection, which is the child. And this woman is so petty and ignorant that she actually worked with the woman that she's been telling the family court for years abused her daughter simply because the two of them together, my ex-girlfriend and my child's mother, hated me for breaking their hearts. So on one hand, my child's mother's going to family court reporting to the family court that my ex-girlfriend beat her daughter and I'm still with her. And on the other hand, my ex-girlfriend is attacking me in New York and New Jersey, saying I'm lying on her and that the mother believes her. The reason she's doing this is because the mother of the child and her truthfully wanted to hurt me so bad that the mother was willing to lie and circumvent the safety of her child just to get revenge on her child's father. So people, they coordinated my arrest for so that I was arrested within 4 days by both of them and spent over a week in jail. Now, when this happened to me in 2023, these women were happy. Oh, they thought they had revenge, people, but they didn't count on the type of person I was. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did my research, my legal research. I put the work in. I spent almost a year trying to become at least gaining a competent, basic understanding of family and criminal law so that I could talk to attorneys. Because, see, it doesn't matter that you have an attorney. If you don't understand the law, your attorney is going to milk you. He's going to milk you for every dollar you have because the truth is an attorney's job is just that. It's a profession. It's a job. Their job is to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually the whole reason many of them go to school is so they can provide a good living for themselves. And being interested in the law and pursuing it now, I kind of understand that. The problem with this is that ethically, they're supposed to educate their clients to what's going on, but a lot of attorneys don't. Now, I am not an attorney, but I am legally competent enough to talk about what I'm going to talk about today and hope that it impacts someone and it's beneficial to someone. A little disclaimer, none of the information I'm about to provide to you is actual legal advice for your case. It's more of it's more for educational purposes because if you understand 1983 and the workings of a Monell claim, its purpose, how it was created, what it's used to do, then when you actually are in a situation, let's say in criminal court or family court, and I'm gonna specifically talk about family court today. Family court is the legal, I would say, family court is a trap. I'm gonna just keep it simple. Family court is a trap. It is the government's legal way to destroy the family unit. This is all they're doing. They bring fathers into court claiming any allegation. A woman can go into family court and claim any allegation. Now, she could be a murderer, she could be a liar, she could be a child abuser, she could be a perjurer. It doesn't matter because family court is the only way a woman with no credibility becomes instantly credible again, despite her history or criminal record. Because family court's purpose is to destroy men in the family unit. It's not for women. Family court is not for women. Family court is designed for men as a tool for women to use against men. Now, some of those men that this tool is used against, they deserve it. A lot of men don't. A lot of men are just subject to the whims of women who are angry the relationship didn't work and that the man doesn't want them anymore. So they'll claim domestic violence. They'll claim abuse towards a child. They'll separate a child from his father and do everything they can to lie to the court to separate this father from their child. Did this nigga just text me and ask me for money? Oh, come on, bro. I'm sorry, people. Um, wow. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. This guy just texted me and asked me for $200, and I never hear from this guy. If you're watching, you know who I am. You must be out your damn mind. Don't do nothing like that again. People are crazy. I'm not even going to say his name, people, but he just threw me off. That was just crazy. Like, dude, this guy's crazy. Um, I would have done it if he asked me in private, but how do you text somebody at 7 o'clock in the morning? Can you loan me $200? What the hell I look like, a bank? I'm sorry, I'm a little insulted, people, because I should be insulted, but whatever. I got to get back to my point. So basically, that's the whole purpose of why I'm doing this today. My purpose today is to teach you the understandings of a Monell claim, its workings, and honestly, how you can use it to hold law enforcement accountable when they violate your civil rights. And that doesn't only pertain to family court, it also pertains to criminal court. A lot of times when you're arrested, when you're arrested for a when you're arrested by the police, let's say they conjure a complaint on you. Let's say you're arrested because the cops are chasing you on a motor scooter and you get injured. All of that would fall into a Monell claim, because the simple truth of the matter is that the NYPD has procedures to which police are not supposed to chase you on a bike. So if they do happen to chase you on a bike and you get hurt, you can sue the state. You can sue the city and the state of New York. Just give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to do my settings. This guy totally threw me off with that text. So I'm back. So without further ado, because I've been talking for about 6 minutes, which was not my intention, I am going to start my presentation. Okay, why is my presentation not coming on? Hello? What did I do? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Houston, we have a problem. I have to pull it up. Don't see how. Why is it not coming up? Okay, now it looks like it's coming up. I just don't see it. Why are you doing that? No. Okay, let's try something else, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if this works. Oh, this is really so annoying. I can't get the damn thing to come up today. What is going on? All right, I tried to hide it, people, but I might have made a mistake. And now I can't unhide it. How the hell did I do? Oh, there it goes. All right. Okay, I would like to change it, but we'll leave it that way. As a matter of fact, people will just make it large because you don't even need to see my face. You don't need to see me. So, right, let's blow this up. There we go. Now, without further ado, Monell versus the Department of Social Services. How to hold your town, state government, that's a typo, and government liable for violating your civil rights. I rushed this, people. I'm so sorry, but the information is correct, so you have nothing to worry about. So let's talk briefly about a history of Monell versus the Department of Social Services. In 1971, Monell was part, and her name was Jane Monell, was part of a class action lawsuit of female employees of the Department of Social Services and the Board of Education of New York, who brought a 1983 action against the department, the board, and the city and individuals of each entity. The complaint alleged that the department and the board, as a matter of official policy, forced pregnant employees to take unpaid leaves of absence prior to any necessary medical leave. The complaint sought injunctive relief and back pay. So these women got together and said, hey, wait a minute. The Board of Ed and Department of Social Services is making us as single mothers. They're making us take maternity leave earlier, and then they're not paying for us for it. And these employees felt that that decision of the Board of Ed and the Department of Social Services was unconstitutional and prejudiced towards them as pregnant women who are trying to have children. So a group of these women got together and decided to sue the city of New York, the Department of Social Services, and the Board of Ed for back pay and damages based off this unconstitutional decision. A history of Monell concluded. On the cross summary judgment is what state actors or people who work for the government, what their attorney will use is they'll try to do something and they'll ask for a summary judgment. A summary judgment is when you lay the facts out before a judge and the judge will make a decision to try to summarize the case so you don't have to go to trial. So what the city did was they argued through summary motion, and so did this plaintiff and her attorneys. On summary judgment motions, the District Court of the Southern District of New York ruled the practice unconstitutional, but held the claim of injunctive moot because the entities corrected their policies prior to the court's decision. Now, what that means is that the court of New York, excuse me, the District Court of New York, the Federal District Court of New York, read the complaint and saw, like, wait a minute, what they're doing is wrong. It is unconstitutional. But the city of New York thought they were smart. Before this summary judgment was put into effect, they tried to amend the policy, because by amending the policy, it no longer existed. So by it no longer existing, they were hoping that this judge, who was reviewing both of the summary judgments of the plaintiff and the defendant — forgive me, people, I just came back from running, so I'm a little off. My energy's down. What these people did by submitting these two summary judgments is that they were hoping that the judge would say, you know what, they're going to give it to us and they're just going to let us go. But the district court decided was that the decision was unconstitutional, and decided, you know something, you're wrong, but because you fixed it, there's nothing we're going to do about it. So what this plaintiff did was decide to go further, and they took it to the Supreme Court. This case was filed in July of 1971, and it challenged the compulsory maternity leave policy of the city of New York, like I just said, and the Board of Education. After a 1978 U.S. Supreme Court decision holding that cities were liable for damages under the Civil Rights Act, the case was settled on the basis of an initial offer by New York of $375,500 to be divided among all the women employees placed on forced maternity leave from July 1968 to the time of the case being filed. Many more women than expected responded, because the city of New York was doing this to thousands of women for decades. So other women came forward and said, wait a minute, during the time of this decision, we were denied back pay. And people ultimately, in the end, the city of New York was forced to pay $11 million to these women that it had robbed of maternity leave, and then tried to kind of use the law to get out of the fact that they had violated these women's rights. Let's go forward. Now, when the Supreme Court grants a certiorari, I'm going to explain that, because certiorari is just a majority of decision that the Supreme Court makes with regard to a case that concerns civil rights, or any matter before the Supreme Court, for that matter. When the Supreme Court grants certiorari, it means that at least 4 justices of the court have agreed to the questions raised in the petition are of a general importance and have not been but should be settled by the court. This decision represents a commitment of the court's judicial resources to decide the merits of one or more of the questions presented in the petition. The court grants certiorari only for compelling reasons, such as resolving conflicts among lower courts or addressing important federal questions that have not yet been settled. The process is discretionary, and the court exercises this power sparingly, which means when the Supreme Court makes a decision regarding civil rights and they grant certiorari, that means that the majority of the judges agree that this is wrong, and they decide to settle it because, the lower courts, in their capacity to make judgments, are not competent enough to do these. Or state actors may be influenced by outside parties to say, you know what, no, if you do this, it's going to cost us millions of dollars. A lot of all of this legislation was created, from the Civil Rights Act of 1871. And that Civil Rights Act was put into effect because after slavery, Southern states were creating their own laws to revitalize slavery. See, people, the history of civil rights in this country is based on the racial oppression that occurred in the South after the post-Civil War Reconstruction. The Southern landowners were upset. Like I told you in previous broadcasts, people, they had lost millions of dollars, and it's estimated that the Southern landowners involved in slavery lost $500 million in 1871, which amounts to trillions of dollars today. So what they attempted to do back then was have their state and local officials, the judges that might have been their friends at the local country club, lawyers, etc., try to reenact unconstitutional law to re-enslave Black people. So this is what happened with the Civil Rights Act of 1871. Democrats, and it was really Democrats, decided no, they weren't going to do this. So certain representatives created legislation, which was ultimately passed and has been in effect since. It's been amended based off the need of the need of the time, but the need of the time is prevalent for these acts. And I feel that if we educate more people involved in family court with regard to this course of action, we'll get results, because we'll just be able to file lawsuits that stop these people from lying through their teeth. So what is a Monell claim and what can it do? A Monell claim is based on the Monell Doctrine, like I said, Monell versus the Department of Social Services of 1971. A 1978 decision, because the Supreme Court made the decision almost 8 years later. And under this doctrine, individuals can challenge individual law enforcement officers, municipalities, and police policies when misconduct or certain situations cause harm or violates their constitutional rights. People, this is what I've been saying. When you are falsely arrested for a domestic violence complaint, where there is absolutely no substantial cause to verify this, people, they are violating your Fourth Amendment right to a legal search and seizure. When your child is taken from you without a proper hearing, when orders of protection are put against you without allegations that substantiate family offenses, when you're falsely arrested and the police do nothing, when you bring evidence that the report is false, the police have a mandatory obligation to charge a person who abuses the privilege of filing like a police complaint, but they don't. Because if they arrest these people, they're going to stop the statistics they use to make it seem like they're doing their jobs. So what they do is ignore. But if that happens to you under Monell, you can sue the police. And people, my only mission is to show you every way you can sue the police in the state. Because people, we need major reform in law enforcement. And the only way to do that is not to scream and shout or curse out the prosecutor. No, it's to start taking these people to the bank. Every person, my mission is this, people. If I can get 10 fathers to sign up with me for what happened to me, we're going to change the family court system. Because the truth of the matter is that's the only way it's going to change is through civil litigation that shows and proves that states are violating fathers' rights by what they are doing, that the family court is biased towards males, that the family court is biased towards male victims of domestic violence, and minimizes the importance of a male victim who may be being pursued by a woman who is abusing the process to get revenge on them. People, I'm not that guy. These women thought they were going to do this to me, and I was just going to cower or end up in jail. And people, forgive the expression, they were fucking wrong. Next. What is the Monell Doctrine's purpose? Under the Monell decision, or Monell Doctrine as it's called, victims can seek compensation, accountability. That's a big word, people, because many of us out there whose civil rights are violated, we just want the people who did this to us to be held accountable for what they did and not lie behind the protection of their office so that they get away with the things they did to us. When you're wronged, you expect justice. That's all this is, people. Using the Monell Doctrine in Section 1983 will grant you the justice that the courts are denying you. Okay, examples of this are victims often use Monell claims when addressing police chase injuries. Many police departments have policies against police pursuits. When an officer engages in a high-speed police chase, innocent victims can suffer. Monell claims provide an effective way to protect an individual's civil rights and hold law enforcement accountable for misconduct. It also plays a significant role in bringing to light and addressing systematic issues within police policy and overreach. And it also brings to the forefront civil rights issues that may be happening within the family court. See fathers out there who may have been robbed for your children, men out there who may be being falsely arrested for the claims of women, and even women. The only way we can truly hold the family court accountable is by using Section 1983 and this Monell claim doctrine. Because the Monell claim gives us the ability to bring these people before a federal court, lay the facts out. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Let's say you go to court and the judge doesn't provide you counsel. That's a violation of your constitutional rights. Let's say you go to court and let's say you don't go to court and decisions are made against you without you allowing you a proper opportunity to present yourself and present your side of the story. That's a violation of your civil rights. People, again, when your child is taken and there's absolutely no proof that you did anything to this child, only the claim of the mother, and the claim is not against you, but the family court gives you supervised visitation when the mother doesn't even make an allegation of child abuse against you, that's a violation of your constitutional rights. People, by using the doctrine of Monell versus the Department of Social Services, we can hold people who do things like this to us accountable, period. That's all it's about, people. Don't rely on the police helping you. They never will. Let's go to 7. We're almost done. The Monell Doctrine comes directly from Monell versus Department of Social Services. This civil rights litigation made it possible to hold local governments and government agencies liable for the officer misconduct under 42 United States Code Section 1983, which is exactly what I've been telling my audience for the last several months. Section 1983 is your course of action. Section 1983 is your sword to attack and properly fight the police. Your shield is knowing the law. Section 1983 is your sword, and a Monell claim is the dagger if you want to keep it in the hands of, let's say, Game of Thrones. 1983 is your long sword. The Monell claim is your short sword, and the law is your shield. And what you need, like some people who may compare the armor of God to knowing scripture and following God's code, I compare the armor of the law to having a long sword, which is the Constitution, a short sword, which is state statute, and a shield of knowing these state and federal statutes to protect you when law enforcement comes after you. Because believe me, people, once you learn this and you start filing actions against you, things are going to change. They're going to start coming after you. They're going to start looking for ways to try to get you out of the mix because you're trying to awaken people to the things that they are doing. Okay, the elements of a Monell claim. To win a case and hold parties liable under the Monell decision, you must successfully demonstrate 4 elements. So a Monell claim has 4 elements that you as a petitioner, as a litigant, have to meet in order to successfully put this before the court. 1, that a harmful policy or custom exists. The entity in question has an unconstitutional policy or custom. 2, deprivation of your federal rights. One of your constitutional rights was violated in some way. And I'm going to pause to mention that and highlight that because that's important. People, in order to succeed in a 1983 claim or a Monell Doctrine action, your constitutional rights have to be violated. Constitution, federal courts do not deal with issues. At least the Supreme Court doesn't really deal with issues of state law because states are allowed to govern themselves. They deal with federal law, things that apply to the Constitution, things that go against the Constitution, decisions and laws that may affect the purpose and the overall purpose of the Constitution, which was to provide you, a private citizen, with your rights. That's what's known as the deprivation of federal rights. When they are depriving you of any of the 14th Amendments, there's actually more than that. When they are depriving you of any of the amendments of the Constitution, whether it be freedom of speech, due process, false arrest and imprisonment, or your parental rights. These are all things that if they try to take them from you without proving that they have a legitimate reason to do it, they are depriving you of federal rights, and you can bring a Monell action against them using Section 1983 in the doctrine of Monell versus the Department of Social Services. The policy of custom led to the injury. That the policy of custom caused the violation to your rights. So let's use an example. The fact that the family court doesn't acknowledge male victims of domestic violence. The fact that the family court works against fathers despite investigating the claims of mother. These are all actions that lead to injury. And these injuries were caused by deprivation to your federal rights. So as long as you can prove that they have a practice of doing this, ignoring fathers, disregarding the false complaints of mothers, disregarding the procedures in place to separate you from your child, all of these policies and customs are things you can use Monell versus the Department of Social Services in Section 1983 to hold these government actors and state employees accountable. Because the only way you're going to change the people is to do something like this. The state employees who are after you are not more intelligent than you people. They just work for a job and they are trained to know certain things, much like they're trained not to violate your civil rights, but they do it anyway because they know the complexity of their system is so vast that most litigants, most people who are brought before this are not going to know how to fight it, and they get away with it. And then they run into somebody like me who ain't going to let them get away with it. And my mission is to teach you people how to stop them from getting away with it also. The government entity holds liability. And the entity in question, often an agency, department, or city or county, is at fault for the incident when you suffered it. What that means is is just like it sounds, people. When a cop violates your civil rights, it's the fault. It's the fault of the police department. And I'm trying to say that so everyone can understand it and making sure I'm correct. But when a cop violates your civil rights, it's the fault of the police department because the police department, through their policies and customs, are responsible for regulating the conduct and the training of their employees. So if you're arrested because, let's say, a cop doesn't know that an order of protection has federal protections in all 50 states, guess what? You can hold the police department accountable for that because they should have trained their officers to realize that a domestic violence complaint from any state is federally enforceable and does not have to be registered. But if the police don't train their officers don't know. So if you sue the township or the city, or the state, using the Monell Doctrine to say, hey, wait a minute, improper training of these employees is the reason that they were so unprepared to know that my order of protection was valid. And this is why I believe they're liable for damages. Briefly, I'm going to tell you this is my whole point in suing the Staten Island District Attorney's Office because of their employee, Mackenzie Upshaw and Courtney Chase, who lied and told me that my federally protected order of protection against my ex-girlfriend, Francina Evans, was invalid in the state of New York, despite the fact that it had been registered in the Richmond County Court 2 months before they told me this statement, and it was active. These employees of Michael McMahon in the Richmond County DA's office lied and told me my order of protection wasn't valid. So people, this is the main reason they're being sued for everything they did. They're being sued for $11 million right now. And people, I'm going to get it because they violated my rights in so many ways to protect a liar just because they wanted to arrest an innocent minority that they're going to pay for this. Staten Island is racist, people. And together, we're going to bring that racism to the forefront. What does the Monell Doctrine have to do with family court? Using the Monell Doctrine, family courts can be held liable for statutory and procedural due process violations committed against private citizens. The 14th Amendment protects a parent's right to raise their child without government interference unless conditions exist to mandate government state intervention. The state must prove the need to intervene, and if you are separated or denied access to your child, there must be a strong evidence of wrongdoing or danger to the child. When these conditions do not exist in Family Courts Act, they are violating the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. People, family court is again the biggest and the most corrupt system in the judicial system, in the judicial process, of any state of any state in this country. Family courts are unregulated. There's no oversight, which is what regulation means. There's no department that you can go to hold them accountable when they do something wrong. They are literally allowed to act without any oversight. They violate rights. They rob fathers. They violate the Constitution by arresting people for child support. People, our country was built on the basis that you cannot be in prison for a debt. Now, when family court goes and they hold fathers and they imprison you for not paying child support, if the Constitution says you can't be in prison for a debt, how is family court doing this? See, the simple fact of the matter is, people, they are unconstitutional. They are constitutionally enabled to do this. But because there is such corruption within the state governments to enforce family court is allowed to do this because state legislature allows them to do this. But the truth is, on a constitutional level, you being arrested for not paying child support is unconstitutional. And if enough fathers get together to bring this Monell claim against the family courts of whatever state you live in and say, hey, wait a minute, you're putting us in jail for child support when the Constitution and case law from this country says that you can't do that because you can't imprison me for a debt. People, I believe a lot of fathers would get their due justice. And people would stop being arrested for not paying child support because they legally cannot do this, but they do it anyway. And that's because as litigants, as petitioners, as private citizens, we don't know the information I'm trying to give you. Now, there's much more information to the doctrine of Monell, I'll be honest, but I can't relay it all in a brief 30 or 40 minute broadcast. So people, guess what? I'm not. I'm not. So the whole point of my broadcast today was a brief overview into what the Monell Doctrine is, what its purpose is, what the elements of a successful Monell claim are, and how you can use it to hold family court or any government agency, whether it be DSS, whether it be the Department of Motor Vehicles, whether it be your state legislator, any state agency that imposes a policy, practice, or law that violates your federal rights, you can use Monell versus the Department of Services to obtain those federal rights and damages. This is my first part of this video. Actually, I wanted to go a little longer and break apart my Monell claim against the city of New York and family court, but I'll do that on another broadcast, probably tomorrow. So for the next broadcast, I'm going to walk you through an active Monell claim that I filed against the state of New York. It's really good too. The family court of New York for what happened with myself and my daughter. And I'm going to walk you through the causes of action, the case law related, and how I was able to effectively file this case so well that it was picked up by an attorney for representation. See, a lot of times when you go through civil rights issues, people, you're not going to be able to get an attorney because you can't articulate how your civil rights was done. The mistake made by the office of Michael McMahon and these corrupt law enforcement officers in law enforcement is that they pushed me to a point that I happened to be intelligent enough to learn them. And that's what I did. So once I was able to, I would say, structure my arguments properly, I drafted lawsuits and sued them. It took a little while, people, because in the beginning I had never drafted a lawsuit, so my lawsuits were really, 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 really primitive. They weren't well put together. There was a bunch of spelling typos in it because it's not like I can't spell people. I rush. I have horrible proofreading skills because I just don't check my work, which I'm learning to do now. I haven't been in school in years. It's a practice that you kind of stop using when you're not in school no more anymore, excuse me. But you always have to correct your work. You have to pay attention to the things you do, and you can't rush it. And I'll be honest, with a lack of discipline, I've unfortunately become lazy, very lazy. But that's not anymore, people. I've become wise, and I'm doing what I need to do. So again, follow us for part 2 of how you can hold your state, city, or local municipality be available using Monell versus the Department of Social Services. On my next broadcast, again, I'm going to walk you through a Monell claim step by step, which will probably take about 2 episodes to show you how you can sue the city for child support issues, the police for violating your civil rights, DSS for, let's say, have some unfair practice that you may be able to prove that they are actually doing. Anything, people, because again, the whole point of this is to educate you on how you can stop these people from violating your civil rights. I gotta go. I have an appointment in a couple of minutes with a very, 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 very nice woman for breakfast. So I'm gonna go meet her for breakfast. And I'll see you soon, people. I love you very much. Thank you all for listening, and I hope the information provided to you was useful. Again, I'm going to post this up just so people can go through it briefly and see what it's about. But again, people, you really need to learn Section 1983 and how to use the Monell Doctrine to hold the family court and criminal courts, police departments specifically, accountable for wrongdoing, especially family court, people. This is the only way, as single fathers, as violated victims of false domestic violence petitions, this is the only way we can hold these people accountable. People, is Section 1983, Section 1985, and Section 1986, and the Monell Doctrine, because those 4 units together covers all your bases. It covers a conspiracy to commit between law enforcement agencies. It covers deprivation of rights under 1983. It covers oh God, what's the other thing I'm using for conspiracy? That's 1986. 1985 is, God, I can't remember 1985. But people, it's okay. We can go back on that. Thank you for listening. Again, have a great day on behalf of Operation Rock. Our mission is to educate. So hopefully this was educational. Forgive me for my stuttering, people, and stuff, but I'm hungry. I just came back from a long run, so I got to eat, get my brain cells flowing. And tomorrow when I come back and I'll walk you through my Monell claim, believe me, I'll be much, much, much sharper. Have a great day. God bless, and thank you all for listening. Remember, people, Monell versus Department of Social Services. It's the only way you can hold these people accountable for the legitimate civil rights violations or procedural due process violations they are committing against you.